Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Annie Oxerart. I work for AFE as the Administrative Director. This is our first in a series of 4 student online meetings that we're going to have this spring. And today we have staff from Yosemite National Park as our guest speakers. And before we get started, we were just going to give you a little bit of background about this series and what we hope to accomplish. So just a little about me. I've worked with AFE since 2017. I work with all of the committees and help them get their work done. And I help plan all of our events. And one of the roles that I play is also helping coordinate the Student Association for Fire Ecology with our national officer team. We just had safe elections, and so we have a new officer team that just was elected last week, and we'll tell you a little bit more about them in a couple minutes. But first I'll turn it over to Mark so he can give you some background on himself and then what we're hoping to accomplish with these meetings.
Thanks, Annie. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and welcome to AFE Student and Early Career Connections. This is a new series we want to do every year in the spring and fall, and the goal is really to help our youth and the younger generation, all of you, get connected to awesome things going on in the fire community. Get connected to each other, those interested in fire, students, folks in the early career. Really, it doesn't matter, you know, what you're doing, but if you have an interest in fire, I think that's the key. I started in fire in 1981 on a hotshot crew for the Forest Service. It took me my whole career. I'm retired now. I'll be 60 in May. To get connected with all these different cool things going on in fire. There's so many diverse things in fire. It's really a cross-cutting theme and topic. So if you have any interest in fire, we want to try to find some really cool connections for you to inspire your interest and your career, because there's a lot of opportunities. And so first off, we want to make this a free space for everyone too, and we want to make it driven by the folks that are on it. I know that we have folks that have joined us today from the Mentoring Futures program, some of the mentees and also the mentors. So thanks for joining us. And with that, I want to go back to Annie. We're going to do a little bit of AFE business and for the student chapters, and then we'll go right to our feature presentation with Yosemite and the fire leadership. Thank you. Go ahead, Annie.
Great. Thanks, Mark. So a little bit about SAFE is the student section of the Association for Fire Ecology. It started in the year 2000 by students and has grown to have chapters across the US since then. And an interesting development just in the past month, we are starting an online section for online students. So that'll be coming out soon. On the AFE website, I'm going to put a link in the chat where you can find out more information about SAFE in case you're not a member yet. You can see which universities have local chapters and just get more information all around about how to join and what activities SAFE does. This year, as I mentioned, we just elected 4 new officers. I think that Madeline is the only officer that was able to join us today. And if you would like to take a minute to introduce yourself, we'd love to hear from you.
Hey guys, I'm Madeline Franz. I'm a grad student at Washington State University and one of the new National SAFE officers, education and training. I study fire, particularly forest regeneration after wildfire, have a couple seasons of wildland experience, and I'm looking forward to this. The WSU chapter is pretty new, so we just formally launched last year, so I'm excited to be building the connection between our chapter and the national org.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. I think, Mark, are you ready to go ahead and introduce Yosemite?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, was there any other AFE news we wanted to talk about?
Well, just in terms of logistics for this call, we're a pretty small group and we want these calls to be informal and comfortable for everyone. You're welcome to turn your camera on or off, depending on your preference. We can use the chat for comments, but you can also all, turn on your mic and ask questions and speak up whenever you'd like to. And if we have time at the end, Mark, maybe we could circle back and just do some updates on any chapters that are present and some discussion around the Monterey conference and student activities there. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks, Annie.
Yep.
Good deal. There's a lot going on with AFE. We've got a lot of different opportunities, including our conferences, but this session, we really want to focus on, early career folks interested in fire. And we want to have it driven by you all and your ideas and your interests. So we've set this up in the spring, but we'll also look for opportunities to get your feedback on these conference calls and these Zoom calls. And so in the chat, if you have ideas and interests that you really have a passion for, like wildlife or hydrology or watershed management or tree rings or insects or fire effects on frogs, these are the things we want to hear about. And if you can take some time too in the chat over the next few calls, if you want to introduce yourself, this is going to be recorded. Tell us a little bit about your interests, where you're at. We're going to go around and start to have the SAFE chapters introduce what they're doing too, so the SAFE chapters can get connected and learn a little bit more about their programs at the universities, but also what they're doing outside of the university, some of the fire activities they're involved with in the local forests and other public lands. Anyways, today we have a great opportunity here from Yosemite National Park. This is a fire program that is in a park that's one of our jewels in the country, no doubt. Groups, and leaders exist not only with the Park Service, but with the Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and BIA. So we're just going to have a visit today with the Park Service at Yosemite. And I'd like to welcome Dan Buckley, Kelly Singer, Jennifer Anderson, and Lacey Hankin. And I think, Lacey, you were going to kick it off today. Is that correct, or Dan? I'll just pass it off to you guys and you can roll with it. Thank you very much. I know you guys are under a lot of snow and you've sacrificed a lot to be here today. So thank you very much.
Hey, Mark, thank you. We are going to let Lacey kick it off. She's at a wilderness seminar, so she stepped out of class to be here. Jennifer Anderson, I don't think made it. Kelly Singer and I are here in our office. We just put down our snow shovels to jump on this meeting. And I see we have Linnea Hardland too from Save the Redwoods. And Linnea is quite involved with what we got going on here in the park. So I encourage Linnea, you to speak up too. So without further ado, I'll allow Lacey to introduce herself and kick us off. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about the general Yosemite Fire Management Program from Dan, but my name is Lacey Hankin. I'm the fire ecologist at Yosemite. I've been here about 15 months, so I'm still pretty new. And I kind of just wanted to talk about how I got here and then what I do at the park. So a lot of people have kind of worked in the NPS for a long time and bopped around to different parks, but I'm brand new to the federal government. I came from doing my PhD at the University of Nevada, Reno in disturbance ecology. And before that, I got a master's in fire ecology at the University of Montana. So I've kind of been building my resume in terms of the academic side of things, and was always reaching for a federal position, but finally landed here in Yosemite. And so at Yosemite, I manage the fire effects monitoring program, which is basically a vegetation monitoring to inform our fire management. So we collect data on the state of vegetation before and after different treatments or wildfires, and make sure that we're actually seeing the effects that we want to see for healthy ecosystems, for reduced fire hazard, to protect communities. And so the monitoring program really makes sure that we're meeting all of our goals and objectives. So through that, we have a seasonal fire effects monitoring team. They collect data, they participate in fire assignments. So they're kind of a good hybrid mix of the science side of things and the actual kind of firefighting, wildland firefighting side of things. So it is a really kind of unique opportunity to do both. And then another part of the program at Yosemite is just general fire-related research to make some of those connections between different resource management programs. So I work with wildlife folks and hydrologists and wilderness specialists to kind of answer some of those unknowns about endangered species in fire or water resources in fire. So kind of get to dabble in all of these different sides of things. And I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that. I unfortunately can't stay the whole time, but definitely feel free to reach out via email if you have any questions or would like to talk more. Yeah.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thanks, Lacey.
Hey, I'll put all our emails in the chat, so you know how to get in touch with us if you want to follow up with further questions so later on. And
thanks, Dan. And if you have questions, I didn't mention that. Go ahead and throw them in the chat. If we don't get to them today, we'll follow up with those. So perfect. Thanks, Dan.
okay, and now I'd like to introduce Kelly Singer. Kelly's my deputy. He's the wildland fire chief, so he works closely with Lacey and supervises Jennifer Anderson, the prescribed fire and fuel specialist for the park. So Kelly, you want to go ahead?
You guys hear me okay? We've been having some connectivity issues here.
Loud and clear.
How's the video coming in?
Good.
Well, you look beautiful.
Okay. So yeah, thanks. Nice to meet you guys this afternoon. My name's Kelly Singer. I'm the Assistant Fire Management Officer, like Dan said. I'm in charge of the wildland and the prescribed fire kind of fuels program part of the park. So I supervise most of the initial attack resources for the park. So we have four wildland engines within the park. Those are based out of El Portal, Wawona, Hodgson, and the Valley. So we have engine crews in each district of the park. Also, we have a wildland fire module. So that's a short squad of folks that are self-sufficient that we can put in the backcountry and manage our fires for resource benefit. They also do a lot of prescribed fire preparation and implementation and some of the planning. So they're a pretty really good crew that's we utilize in a lot of our backcountry fires and our full suppression fires. We also have a helicopter module within the park, which is a Type 2 medium helicopter. And we have about 10 folks attached to that ship. And their mission is kind of split between fire response within the park and outside the park, helping out some of our cooperators in the adjacent forests and on some of the state areas as well. And they also have a pretty heavy search and rescue mission. So going out and doing searches, retrieving people that are injured in the backcountry. They have a really long-standing rappel and short haul program. So we're able to rappel into areas where we can't land the helicopter, get folks to the ground quickly to either put a fire out or pick up an injured person, get them in the basket and get them out of the backcountry to where we can get them immediate medical care. So, and then we also have, as Lacey mentioned, a fire effects crew that stays pretty busy looking at our prescribed fire and fuels program, looking at some of the pre and post leads, so we can adjust our objectives and making sure that our prescribed fire plans are meeting those objectives and tweak it kind of as we go. Dan, should I go into my background now, or do you want to move on?
Yeah, if you want to just describe how you got into fire, Kelly, being a student coming into fire.
Okay, well, so I grew up in Yosemite, so I always was interested in fire. It was something that I really didn't understand as a kid. I'd see these wildfires, or I'd see prescribed fires happening, and I was really interested in it. It's like, why are they lighting forests on fire? I don't really get it. So eventually, after school, I got into a forestry program down in Reedley College or Kings River College. And it was a pretty cool program because they exposed us to a lot of on-the-job training. They taught us how to run chainsaws. They had a career day where they'd actually bring in Forest Service folks and Park Service folks and expose us to some of the careers that are out there. So after that, going through that 2-year forestry program, I was picked up back in Yosemite where I was from. So I worked on an engine for my first year in '94 up in Hodgson Meadows. Back then, we had prescribed natural fires. I saw Beasley is on the list here. So one of the first fires I was exposed to was monitoring the fire out in the Illilouette Basin, the Horizon Fire. So we were able to go out there and monitor fire, watch fire behavior, just watch the fire, map it. And as a first-year firefighter, I think that was huge for me to see fire move across the landscape in a natural environment, seeing the effects of the fire, seeing good fire effects out there. Just a super cool experience being out in the wilderness for 2 weeks and being exposed to that. I think that's where I've loved the Park Service and our mission and how we were allowed to let these processes happen on the landscape. So yeah, I did a season on the engine, and then after that, bounced around, left the park, got picked up on a hotshot crew on the Sequoia Forest. So I did that for a while. Came back, ended up coming back to the park for one of our first fuels crews that we developed after the 1997 flood. There was a lot of hazard fuels that needed to be cleaned up. So we had our first fuels crew, ran that for about 10 years, doing a lot of prescribed fire, a lot of mechanical treatments, running chainsaws, prepping burns, and responding to fires within the park and outside the park. Eventually, we built that crew into a 20-person crew, and ups and downs of funding ended up being a 7 to 10-person wildland fire module. So after doing that, stayed within fuels. I became a fuels specialist or the fuels battalion, implementing fuels projects in the park, prescribed fire and managing fire for resource benefit. And then after that, ended up leaving the park again and went and worked in the Sequoia National Park, working as the assistant FMO, kind of doing the same job here, responding to wildfires and running the preparedness program. And then ended up coming back a couple years later after Siki, back into Yosemite where I'm at now. And it's been, we've had a lot of vacancies throughout the years. It's tough in Yosemite because we're kind of relying on housing for our people. So a lot of the folks live inside the park. It's tough to find housing for when we're trying to fill jobs outside the park, find housing, with all the new VRBOs and short-term rentals. It's one of the challenges we have with filling vacancies. So Dan and I, over the last couple of years, have had pretty good success building our program back up, filling vacancies. The fire ecologist was vacant for a long time. We didn't have a fire effects crew. Most of that funding was chopped over the years. So we've kind of built the program back up, and we're starting to, accomplish more fields objectives. We got a lot of mechanical treatments we're doing in the park, dealing with a lot of the activity fuels we've had from the drought and bug kill over the years. We've got a lot of planning done. We hired our prescribed fire specialist. Jennifer has been doing a ton of work, doing work in the planning side, the compliance side, getting all the cultural surveys done for all of our prescribed fire plans. And right now we're looking really good as far as fuels projects go. A lot of planning has been accomplished, and we have projects that are pretty much shovel ready. So now it's just finding the right windows to get those projects done. And then again, all of our preparedness folks, the engines, helicopter, hand crew, all those crews are looking really solid, filling vacancies throughout the years. And we've been a busy park over the last couple of years with the Washburn fire last year, and then managing two big fires, one in the Illilouette Basin and then one north of Hetch Hetchy for over 12,000 acres of managed fire for resource benefit. So seeing good fire out there on the landscape, and having to deal with these human caused fires in the park. So it's finding that balance. And we're a small staff. We're as far as Park Service goes, we have one of the biggest budgets and one of the largest staff, but compared to our cooperators, BLM, Forest Service, we have a small staff. So we rely on those folks to help us out, get some of our projects done and respond when we do have the Washburn incidents or fires that we need to go full suppression on. We lean heavily on our cooperators. That's all I got for now.
Hey, Kelly, what do you do in your spare time?
Shovel snow.
I like to ski. I love to ski, but there's too much of a good thing right now. So yeah, skiing, river rafting, outdoor stuff.
Excellent, thank you.
But Dan doesn't give me much free time.
Yeah, it's hard to retrain after you do the hotshot thing, I know. So I'm sure you're still trying to, convert.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I guess it's you, Dan.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Kelly.
you, Mark. And great to see you and Mike Beasley, who in my past I've had the privilege of supervising, so it's kind of fun. My name's Dan Buckley. I'm the branch chief of fire and aviation for Yosemite National Park. So we have, you heard from Kelly and Lacey, mostly from the wildland side, but we also have the aviation side with the helicopter Kelly described. And then we also have a structure fire responsibility here. So we do it all. Kelly's also a structure firefighter for us, and we have like a fire brigade. All the people who are required to live here in the park are required to participate on the structure fire brigade. So pretty much a full program. Like Kelly said, it's one of the most complex programs in the country. It's funny how paths lead you in life, and just the fact that you folks are all here listening, this may help you find some paths. So hoping that will happen. So my story is, I started in 1976 when I was 18 years old. I got a job working in the park in one of the markets, and the fire crew would come in and got to know them. And finally they said, hey, why don't you come to work for us on your days off? We can pay you as a AD emergency firefighter. So that was in 1976. And then I worked a couple of years for CAL FIRE, which was known as CDF back then, on engines in Central California and Northern California. And as a student at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo, signed up for a field trip to Yosemite, and fell in love with Yosemite. A ranger gave us a talk, and after the talk, I walked up to her and I go, how do you get a job with the Park Service? And she told me how to apply, and that was in 1980. And later in 1980, I got hired in Sequoia National Park, where I spent 17 years there. I worked on an engine crew for the first year, and then the next 16, I worked on the Arrowhead Hotshot crew, and that's how I know Mark. We worked together on that crew. Then I bounced around to a few parks. I did prescribed fire and fuel specialist in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And then I came back to Yosemite as a prescribed fire and fuel specialist here. You see the common thread. Everyone gets involved in the prescribed fire and fuel stuff if they have an interest in fire and science. And then I left Yosemite to go to work at the National Interagency Fire Center for about 12 years, except for about 3 of those years I spent as a park superintendent at Craters of the Moon in South Central Idaho. But I rose through the ranks and became the fire director for the National Park Service. I did that for 5 years. I was about to retire, and then the job at Yosemite came open, and I thought, you know what? I'm kind of old, but I could probably do 3 more years in my career. So I came here, and like Kelly said, we had to pretty much rebuild the program. We had 22 vacancies out of the permanent employees that we had to hire, and so we spent the last 2 years doing that, and now we're back up just about to full staff. So it's been quite rewarding that way. So you never know where your paths are going to take you. And I did put our emails in the chat, and I encourage you, if you're starting out, even if you've been doing it a while, don't be afraid to reach out to people that have been doing the business. This is my 47th fire season. So I've been around quite a while. I know a lot of people. And if I can't help you answer your questions or figure it out for you, I certainly know probably someone who can. So you build networks, and that's how you get successful in this business. So running the program here at Yosemite is quite rewarding. This is one of the earliest prescribed fire programs in the Park Service. We started out in 1970, so 52 years ago, 53 now this year. And then we also started managing the backcountry fires like Kelly was talking about. And Mike Beasley was heavily involved in that as well. That started in 1972. So we've been doing that for over 50 years now. And because of that, it interested this person named Stephen Pine, who some of you may know. And Annie, if I can get on the screen and I'll show a couple things.
Yeah, you should be able to use the share screen at the bottom.
Yep.
The toolbar there. Yeah, you should be able to use that there.
Okay, so coming out this year is this book by Stephen Pine about Yosemite. And it should be out anytime now. I have to give Steve a call and see when it might be come out. But the name of the book is Pyrocene Park. And Stephen Pine has deduced from all his research all around the world that we're entering a Pyrocene era. You read about all the massive fires that we're having lately. And he focused in on Yosemite just because of the history of fire here in the park. So pretty cool stuff. And if you've never read a Stephen Pine book, I highly recommend it. The other thing I wanted to do was just show you some pictures of the park. Is the right one? No. Hang on. You got a boomer trying to do electronic stuff. So, oh, here we go. So I just wanted to show you some pictures of the park and what that looks like. And that's kind of what it looks like today. We're dealing with a major successive winter storms here. The park has been closed since February 24th. And so
We can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't see it?
No, not yet.
Can you share it? Is that possible?
Yeah, I did. I thought it did, but let me try again. Did you see the screenshot of Pyrocene Park?
No.
Negative.
Oh, bummer.
So it should, once you click the green share screen, and then once your screen is being shared, it'll kind of highlight it with a, I think,
Okay.
or yellow box around it.
All right, let me try that again then. Sorry.
Yeah, no
That's
worries.
fine, Dan. And while you're pulling that up, I'll tell you the fire crew and leadership here is very modest. They also work with a lot of scientists at the park. There's some incredible science because obviously the nature of Yosemite, not only Pine's historical work, which is phenomenal, but there's been tree ring studies that have reconstructed the climate and the fire at the park for thousands of years, definitely hundreds of years. I know the climate's been reconstructed for thousands because I was involved with those tree ring studies. And so go ahead, Dan. I can see your screen now. Nice.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see it. We, like Kelly said, we have pretty poor connectivity here in our offices, especially with the weather. But this is the book Stephen Pine is going to be coming out with this spring. So look for that and you can learn a little bit more about Yosemite. I know we're all anxiously awaiting it. And then just the pictures I wanted to show you of Yosemite. Can you see the picture of the falls?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, that's the view Kelly has out his office window. So quite choice. This is another feature in Yosemite National Park. No, that's not the reflection of the fire. That's a reflection of the alpenglow in the evening, taken just this last fall by one of my neighbors. This is a photo of Half Dome there on the left. And that's the Illilouette Basin in the South Fork of the Merced. There's a fire right here that just started with this lightning storm we were experiencing as the King Fire. And that one we unfortunately had to put out just because of the conditions, but it was in a prime spot. Had it been a wetter year, we would have managed for sure. And so Kelly talked a little bit about fuels treatments, so did Lacey. This is a burn, pile burning in a meadow just to the east of El Capitan, which is a major rock climbing feature in the park. And just a cool place to work, if you're not gathering that. And this is a photo from a fire we did manage in the backcountry last summer, the Red Fire. You know, we had several crews out there trying to keep it where we wanted it, and we were successful at that. You can see the night sky, and these are the kind of environments, if you become here to Yosemite or to another national park, you get to see if you're in fire. So that's all I had for that one.
Okay.
We might have lost Dan for a minute here.
Go ahead and take it over, Annie. That's great. Those are some awesome photos. Dan may be buried by a snow avalanche right now, for all we know. Hopefully he's safe. Let's see here.
Did we,
Great. You know,
did we lose Dan? I
we
think,
may have.
yeah, I think we did. Mark, do you want to have some discussion? If anybody, if you want to turn on cameras and microphones, we can certainly do that. And we
Yeah, let's.
20 minutes, and maybe Dan will pop back on.
Does anyone have any questions so far on anything we've covered?
Yeah, Dan should be back on here shortly due to technical difficulties.
Thanks.
Yeah,
problem,
connectivity is
Kelly.
just not good today.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, it made it right to the end there, so.
No, that was good. You know, I don't know if the folks on the call have seen the giant sequoias, but they are amazing. I'm not talking about the coastal redwoods, but the giant sequoias and, you know, in the Sierras of California are an amazing part of America's heritage. And so that's really what the fire crew and the leadership there is entrusted to manage for our country, is these, you know, this treasured landscape. And a lot of the work they're doing is trying to restore that habitat and ecosystem so that the giant sequoias can survive under the future climate conditions. So it's pretty phenomenal what they're working on. We didn't really hear from the scientists, but we will hopefully and probably will hear from some of the science in the future. I do know we have on our call a special guest, Lene Hartford or Hartfund, I'm not sure, from the California Fire Exchange, I believe. Are you still on, Lene? Hardland.
Linnea.
Linnea, I'm sorry, I haven't met you and I'm terrible with
Oh, that's
names,
okay.
but yeah, do you want to give us an update on what's going on there in the California Fire Exchange? A little tidbit of some exciting stuff?
I'm not sure if maybe that is somebody else. I'm here from UC Berkeley's SAFE chapter and from the Stevens lab. So we sometimes have folks working in our lab who are from the California chapter of the Fire Science Consortium.
You know what? That was my mistake.
That's okay.
So can you tell us about the SAFE chapter a little bit and what you all are up to? That's what I meant. Thank you.
I am Linnea Hardland. I'm a graduate student at UC Berkeley currently, and I am studying fire effects on giant sequoia following the Castle Fire, which was in 2020. And we have a really small SAFE chapter at UC Berkeley. It's been a little bit inconsistent in the past. Right now, I'm the sitting president, but I'm kind of just filling in between presidents because we haven't had a lot of consistency and we lost a lot of members during the pandemic. We haven't done that much this year, as this is my last year of grad school, so it's been a little bit hard for me to manage our SAFE chapter while also being in grad school. But one thing that I'm working on is trying to work with one of our cooperative extension specialists, who is also our the chair of the forestry program at Berkeley, to do a prescribed burn at our research forest, Blodgett Forest Research Station. Some of you may know about Blodgett. And Rob does a lot of burning at Blodgett, and he has a research burn that he's doing this spring. And so we're hoping that SAFE can coordinate with him on that burn and kind of do like a Trex style burn for folks in the SAFE chapter at UC Berkeley to get experience doing different jobs on prescribed fires that they might do, you know, if they were interested in following in Dan and Kelly's footsteps and going and working on fuels crews or prescribed fire crews or wildland fire modules or fire effects crews in the future. So we're hoping to have like an operational squad and a fire effects monitoring squad. We'll see, fingers crossed, if we can do that. There's a lot of snow right now, so we might not even get a weather window before everybody skedaddles after graduation, but that's really what we are working on right now. Otherwise, we haven't really done much more than getting together every once in a while and discussing papers.
Thanks, Linnea. That is a great update. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. And it looks like Dan's back now too, so great to see that you and Scott Stevens and, you know, the SAFE chapter there and at Berkeley are getting out to the parks and working on some of these management projects as well, applied science. Dan, thanks for coming back. Does anyone have any questions for the folks that have been on so far from the park? Did you have anything else, Dan, you wanted to add? Those
Got a
were great
question, Dan.
photos. We enjoyed them.
Hey, yeah, I was gonna show you a quick PowerPoint, if that's okay, Mark.
About your high school baseball career?
Actually, it's soccer and cross country, but yeah,
Okay, yeah, lead on, brother.
okay. Sorry about that. My computer decided to reboot all of a sudden. So can you all see the file there? Or the,
Yes, you're good.
okay, great. Let me figure this out. So this is a slideshow I put together earlier this year about the Washburn fire. And the Washburn fire was I think Linnea was talking about maybe some of her work in the giant sequoias and all the fires we've had. So the Washburn fire started just on the boundary of our largest grove in the giant sequoia grove in the park, the Mariposa Grove, July 7th. And you can see from the pictures on the right, especially, it burned pretty intensely. But then on the left, you can see all those folks working to save the giant sequoias. I'm pretty happy that we are pretty successful in keeping fire mostly out of the grove at this point. And the reason we were able to do that is because a lot of prior fuels treatments, I mentioned the prescribed fire program started in 1970, and we've been burning in the grove since then. So that really helped us to protect. It was a human caused start. So we initially attacked it aggressively from the outset. Fortunately, we had some firefighters nearby doing a chainsaw training class, and they were able to jump right on it and start keeping the fire out of the grove. We immediately had to close the Mariposa Grove and the south entrance of the park, which is kind of a big deal when we closed the park. It burned in the Sierra National Forest in the lower third of Yosemite's wilderness. And so we had to close those areas as well. On the first day when the fire started, we had 450 park visitors in the giant sequoia grove walking around, and we had to evacuate 450 people out of there. We were throwing them in shuttle buses, and the bus drivers had to drive their buses through the flames. So quite exciting. And then the next day we had to evacuate the community of Wawona, which was down the hill, and that was 1,600 people. The aftermath, 4,886 acres, and more than half on Yosemite, and 2,008 acres on the Sequoia. No large sequoias or structures were lost. You can see the smoke plume from the Washburn fire in that picture from Olmsted Point in the park. We're still investigating the fire. So if you know of anything, the tip line is open. And then we went through, this lasted for 30 days. So we had 2 Type 1 incident management teams rotate through, as well as a burned area emergency rehab team that came in and helped us assess what damages were short-term and long-term. And we're still working on a lot of the suppression, a lot of the damages the fire did. And we're especially concerned about it this week because we're about to get 6 inches of rain between Wednesday and Saturday. Final cost was $46 million, $9,500 an acre, which is quite high. And that was just because protecting the giant sequoias and protecting the community of Wawona and the fact that we're in California where it's expensive. The reason we were successful with the Washbird is because we've been doing a lot of fuels treatments. You can see the maps and the dates. All those dates indicate something happened. And most of those were prescribed fires that occur that we've done. Some of the green shaded areas are wildfires that have occurred. So the Washburn occurred, damn it. The Washburn occurred this year. We had the South Fork fire in 2017 to the north of it. And then all these prescribed fires down in the Mariposa Grove and around the community of Wawona, which is right here, this white spot here. So it's really pays off all these fuels treatments. It really does work. And we're pretty fortunate that we were able to stop it. We're fortunate that this fire occurred early in the fire season where a lot of resources were available too. And then this is a close-up on all the fuels treatments in the Mariposa Grove. So you can see we've done quite a bit of burning in here through the years. And then this is where the fire started, where my cursor is right now. And it burned up this way right at the initial start, first day. This is what it looks like in the untreated areas. So that's why it's important for us to be proactive and do a lot of treatment up front. And this is the canopy cover loss from the bear fire, or from the bear report. So you can see quite severe in some areas, and most of these areas have not seen fire for years. So that's the effects we can see when it's hot and dry and the fuels are dry. And you know, there are a lot of people that came to help us, but a lot of credit goes to this man, Jan van Wagtenton, who was instrumental in starting the Association of Fire Ecology. You know, it's kind of funny. Jan died on July 9th. The fire started on July 7th. And I called his son, Kent, who is a GIS specialist for the region, but used to work here for years, and, you know, expressed my condolences. And then we kind of shared a laugh because we thought that the day Jan died, they were burning one of the first prescribed burn units ever done in the park. And that was done by Jan. And Kent and I kind of mused that Jan probably had a hand on a drip torch out there with the hotshot crews. So that's all I have for you. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Really appreciate your leadership. Dan has had an amazing career. You heard how many years he's been working, leading the way to the future. He's really inspired not only a lot of individuals, but whole organizations. So thanks, Dan. Appreciate your time today and the whole staff at Yosemite.
You bet. And again, don't be afraid to email us. We're nice humans.
Thank you. And before we end the call, we have a few more items. We're going to have a little fire ecology trivia question for those of you still on. And Annie, before. Sorry, Annie, I guess I muted myself. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we begin our closeout?
No.
Okay, great. Thanks to you, to everyone for joining us today. And we're lucky to have the folks from Yosemite. I think, you know, there's so many opportunities in fire. We looked at some management opportunities today, but there's a lot in research and science. We'll consider some of those in the future. I know a lot of you are in between, you know, semesters in college, or you might be taking some time off traveling. There's a lot of opportunities. So we want to introduce you to those pathways in your career in the future. And so thanks for joining us today. And so we want to close out with a little trivia question. And those of you that are on, you'll have a chance to win a couple things. And so here is the trivia question. If you can go ahead and plug that into the chat. This is also based on your knowledge and how quickly you can plug this in time. But here's the question for this month. Name a fire-adapted conifer species, genus and species, that naturally occurs in the US, United States of America, and also at least one other country. And then also describe the fire adaptation for this species briefly. Think about it. All of US, we've got Alaska, we've got all the countries surrounding. Let's see. Oh, what have we got so far? And this is time. So Tim Kirkpatrick has plugged in Pinus ponderosa. We've got Pinus lambertiniana, also from Linnae. Pinus contorta from Madeline. And then Tom provided the fire adaptation. Thickened bark and absorptive root structure. Wow. Linnae, fill us in on Pinus lambertiniana. What species is that?
Sugar pine, and they have really high height to live crowns because they are well adapted to frequent fire.
Excellent. Excellent. And Madeline, what about the Pinus contorta?
Yeah, lodgepole pine has serotinous cones. So after fire burns through, their cones open up and you get a dense patch coming back.
Wow. Excellent. Well, I think we have actually 3 excellent responses. And so today, because Tim Kirkpatrick, you were the first in with Pinus contorta. Let's see here. We're going to give you a shirt, okay, from the Association for Fire Ecology. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got the logo. You'll have to get us your address to Annie, okay? And we also, to our runner-up, which is, I'm sorry, I'm going through this, Linnea with Pinus lambertiniana. We have a book, a used version, but in excellent condition, Fire in America by Steve Piney. You've already heard about Steve. He is one of our fathers of fire history. And so we'll get that to you in the mail. Provide us your address and connection. We already have that, I think, for you, Lene. And then Madeline, we're going to get you, we actually have some cups and also a,
We have clean
what do we have, Annie?
canteen. They're clean canteen, water bottles, or pint cup.
So we'll give you one of each of those.
So I put my email in the chat, so you guys can email me your addresses, and then Tim, you'll have to probably work with me on like sizes and colors of shirts to make sure we have something that's right for you. But if not, then we have other AFE stuff that we can trade out. So yeah, email me your address and then we'll figure out the details. So Mark, all the answers entered were correct.
Excellent. Yeah, you guys did great. And so stay tuned. March 29th, we have the University of Idaho is going to be joining us, and Heather Eward, and she is the leader of the SAFE chapter there at University of Idaho, Moscow. And also she's going to introduce a course she's been starting there. So appreciate you all joining us this week. We have at least 3 or 4 other activities we have planned this spring, and pass the word on. you know, and let us know what you guys need and want. It's for you, and we want to get connected and help you get connected. So thanks a
And
lot.
maybe if any of you that are on would like to do a little update about your SAFE chapter, similar to what Linnea did today, let Mark and I know, because we can add you into the agenda, and we can do it informally too anytime. But if you want to have a few minutes, we'd love to hear from you. All right.
And any last words? Thanks so much. Y'all have a nice evening. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everyone. Appreciate you all being on. Bye.
Thank you.